Are you a religious person? What do you mean when you say religion? Is it a set of rules and everyday activities? Is it a set of principles and moral compass? They say that the sincerest prayer is uttered on an airplane during the period of turbulence. When something happens, we turn to our tradition and to the wisdom of our ancestors. But what about everyday life, when the need isn't too obvious? Imagine this scenario. On your way to work, you pass a small pond. On hot days, children sometimes play in the pond, which is only about a knee deep. The weather is cool today, though, and the hour is early. So you are surprised to see a child splashing about in the pond. As you get closer, you see that it is a very young child. In fact, it's just a toddler who is unable to stay upright or walk out of the pond. You look for the parents and babysitter, but there is no one else around. The child is unable to keep his head above the water for more than a few seconds at a time. If you don't run into the pond to pull him out, he seems likely to drown. It's easy and safe for you, but you will ruin your new shoes you bought only a few days ago, and probably get your expensive clothes wet and muddy. Also, by the time you hand the child over to someone responsible for him and change your clothes, you will be late for work. At such moment, would you think about work, about your new shiny shoes, and about ruining your clothes? Would you run into the water and save the child? I think most people in the world would say yes and sacrifice shoes for the life of a stranger. Peter Singer, an Australian philosopher, included this case in the introduction to his book, The Life You Can Save. He presents this scenario to illustrate the following point. Nearly 10 million children under 5 years old die each year from causes related to poverty. By donating a relatively small amount of money, you could save many children's lives. Maybe it takes a bit more than the amount needed to buy a pair of shoes, but we all spend money on things we don't really need, whether on drinks, meals out, clothes, concerts, vacations, new cars, house renovation. Is it possible that by choosing to spend your money on such things, rather than contributing to an aid agency, you are leaving a child to die? A child you could have saved. The main difference between the story about the child in the pond and children endangered by poverty is that in one case, you can see the child in front of you, and others are very far away. Let's look at another text, this time from Jewish source. It comes from Tosefta, a 2nd century compilation of laws and rabbinic teachings. It has a case in which one city is asked to share its own water supply, which another city has with another city that has no water. It's important to note that in the Middle East, and especially in the land of Israel, droughts are common. And therefore, by sharing your water, you may potentially endanger your own city in case of a drought later. The text is as follows. In the case of the wellspring that belongs to the people of the city, in a choice between them and others from another city, they come before the others. So your own people take precedence. But in a choice between the others and the animals of your city, the life of people come before the animals. But, there is always but in rabbinic texts. But Rabbi Yossi says that the animals of the people of your city come before the life of others. In a choice between your animals and the animals of others, however, your animals come before the animals of others, but in a choice between the life of others and the laundry of other people of the city, the life of others come before the laundry of the people of your city. But again, Rabbi Yossi, the same rabbi, has an alternative view. He says that the laundry of the people of your city should come before the lives of others. This text is a good example of a classic Talmudic debate. The collective anonymous voice of majority of rabbis, often called stam in Talmudic literature, presents the majority opinion. All the objections and alternative views are also recorded and often attributed to an individual rabbi, and this rabbi is named, as we can see in this case. It is Rabbi Yossi. When I read this text for the first time, I was simply shocked by this debate. How can you even think of using water for your laundry when people in another city have nothing to drink? How can you be Rabbi Yossi? If Rabbi Yossi's opinion was the only text I learned in Judaism, I'm not sure I would have wanted to be a part of such religion. In fact, Jerusalem Talmud quotes this story and has a student and tells a story about a student who left the school and in fact Judaism after hearing this teaching. Puzzled by this text, in her book Where Justice Dwells, Rabbi Jill Jacobs, our contemporary, quotes it and writes, "In the context of a theoretical conversation, it is very easy to say that we should always provide drinking water to others first. But if we are honest, we must admit that a few of us are willing to accept a life in which we have little more than a food, shelter, and basic items of clothing. The truth is that we want to be the majority of rabbis and help others, but in reality, so many of us are Rabbi Yossi. Many people think that being religious is to be an idealist, to believe in the ideal world where justice and equality are not just words. Judaism is trying to have an honest conversation about the reality of our lives, not only from the theoretical perspective. Vaughan, in your Dvar Torah, you pointed out that today 11% of the worldwide population has no access to drinking water. You are a very kind and curious person, and it is what I think, and it is I think that most people know about you. You care about people and aware of global issues. Today is the day when you begin your journey towards an adulthood, towards being an adult. I hope that you will not lose this awareness, and in a few years' time, you will become an advocate for those who are suffering, that you will continue caring for the needs of others and making a positive change in the world. I know that one interest that both of us share is literature about utopia. As we know, in utopia, all problems are solved. People are encouraged to think out of the box and to ensure that everyone is healthy and happy. All utopian books have a concept of an ideal place, country, or an island where people are happy. The word utopia was first used by Thomas More. The full title of his book is A Little True Book, No Less Beneficial Than Enjoyable, about how things should be in a state and about the new island called Utopia. And the word utopia is derived from the Greek prefix o, or u, meaning not, and topos, meaning place. Therefore, utopia means no place, or place that doesn't exist. Today we know that there is no ideal in this world. We know that it is probably impossible to create utopia in a real life. We also know that the attempt to create utopia often leads to dystopia, the word derived from Greek meaning a bad place. It leads many people to abandon the mission. This simple fact that utopia is impossible leads many people to abandon the mission to make this world better and to focus on making a good life only for yourself, your family, and close friends. And in fact, we can see it in the modern world a lot. It is similar to the story of Moses, who wanted to arrive to the promised land, who wanted to create an ideal future for all Israelites. But these hopes were shattered by the reality of stubborn people, by gossip, ego, and strife to power. Every year we read the same story. Every year we complete the cycle of the reading of Torah, how Moses leads people to his vision of the promised land, but never arrives there. The only person who recites Matovu, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places of Israel, is a non-Jewish prophet, looking at the people from the outside and imagining that we are perfect. Torah ends with the death of Moses, who never arrives to his ideal world. But the moment we read the last word, we start again. From the beginning, being a religious Jew is to be on the journey towards the promised land, to our utopia, a place that we know does not exist, that we never come to, but it doesn't mean that we should stop. Being a religious Jew is to know that the promised land is not ideal. We will never arrive there, but nevertheless, maybe hard, maybe with a broken arm, but we begin the journey towards it again and again. Shabbat Shalom.